with a new chapter, IPC methods. IPC stands for Inter-Process Communication Methods. First, let us see what exactly inter-process communication is. And this is a concept that is not new to us, because we have already learned this in our previous semester operating system, right? Okay, so inter-process communication is nothing but the mechanism provided by the operating system that allows process to communicate with each other. And this communication could involve a process letting another process know that some event has occurred, or the transferring of data from one process to another. Okay, and inter-process communication, it enables one application to control another application, and for several applications to share the same data without interfering with one another. And the various forms of IPCs that are supported by Unix system are as follows. Okay, so as you can see, there are 9 mechanisms listed here, and if you observe, 8 and 9 are represented in blue, or it is highlighted in blue, and the rest 7 are highlighted in red. That is because the first 7 is an IPC mechanism that is restricted between the process that belongs to the same host. Okay, and the last 2, that sockets and streams, allows the inter-process communication happen between the process residing in different hosts. So as a part of the module, we will be looking into the first 7. Okay, yeah, we'll look into the first one, the pipes. The first inter-process communication method, what we will be looking is about pipes. The pipes are the oldest form of Unix system IPC and are provided by all the Unix systems. But unfortunately, pipes are having a few limitations. One is, pipes are half duplex, so which means the data flow is in only one direction, right? So either one process can write, or the other process can only perform the read operation. So there is a restriction with respect to the flow of data. So this is one of the major limitations of pipe. Of course, nowadays some systems provide full duplex pipes, but for maximum probability, we should never assume that this is the case. The other limitation is, pipes can be used only between the process that have a common ancestor. Normally, a pipe is created by a process, and that process calls fork system call, and the pipe is used between the parent and child. So these are the 2 major limitations of a pipe. Even with these 2 limitations, pipe can be considered as one of the widely used inter-process communication tool. Let us see the syntax of pipe. So pipe is created by using the pipe system call, and this field, these are the arguments. File descriptor is an array of integer type that has 2 possible values. Let us see the 2 possible values later. And this function will return 0 if the pipe function is successful, and it will return -1 on error. Okay, the 2 file descriptor are written through the, so these 2 values are written, file descriptor value is written to this file des argument. Okay, so file des, file descriptor 0 is open for reading, and if you make a guess, file descriptor 1 is open for writing, right? No brainer. Yes. So the output of file descriptor 1 is the input for file descriptor 0. So let us see the pictorial representation of this mechanism. Okay, so this can be represented in 2 ways. You can see 2 pictures here, one on the left and one on the right. The left half of the figure here, this particular figure, it shows the 2 ends of the pipe connected to a single process, isn't it? So this is open for writing, and this is open for reading. So what we are doing, we are performing writing using the file descriptor 1, and using the file descriptor 0. The process is performing a reading operation. Okay, and the right half of the figure, this one on the screen, the other figure, this figure emphasizes the flow of data in the pipe through the kernel. Okay, as this gives a more detailed representation in the diagram. So through the pipe, the data flows through the kernel, right? Flows through the kernel in by using the pipe. Okay, so this is like an open tap here. Okay, where writing of the data is done, which flows through the kernel via pipe, and it is read in the other end. Okay, now this particular diagram is having no meaning, isn't it? Because we have a pipe in a single process. A pipe in a single process is next to useless. Normally, the process that calls pipe then calls a fork system call. Okay, so this will create an IPC channel from parent to child or vice versa. So we will look into that particular diagram. Yes, so this is what I mean. After a pipe system call is created, it is normally followed up with the fork system call. That is the process of creating a child process. Fork is called, right? Now if you observe, the child is having again two file descriptor and the parent is having again two file descriptor. Okay, now again this diagram doesn't make a lot of sense, isn't it? So normally what happens, one of these two ends need to be closed. So normally a file, the parent will communicate with the child by writing something, and the child has to read the data what the parent is writing. So what we need to do, this can be done by closing the two ends of the pipe. Okay, yes. So if the parent is writing something, then the FD0 part, the file descriptor 0 of the parent need to be closed. So it is not written here. So this end is closed. So this reading end by the parent is closed, and the right end of the child is also closed. So this is a mechanism how the parent will read or write the data to the child. So the child is reading now, isn't it? So if the parent has to read from the child, then FD0 of the parent need to be enabled and FD1 of the child need to be enabled, and these two need to be closed. Okay, yeah. So this is inter-process communication between the parent and child via pipe system call or pipe function. Okay, now let us see what happens when one end of the pipe is closed. The following two rules applies. So if we read from a pipe whose right end has been closed, okay, so we are trying to read from a pipe whose right end is closed, then the read returns the value 0 to indicate that end of the file has been met and all the data has been read. Okay, so this is what happens when when we read from a pipe whose right end is closed. And let us see what happens if we try to write to a pipe whose read end has been closed. Then we are trying to write to a pipe through a pipe whose read end is closed. Then in that case, the SIG pipe is generated. So after this signal is generated, there are two options: either to ignore the signal or to catch it and return it to the signal handler. And the write returns 1 with the error number set to E pipe. Okay. Yes. So this is the two scenario what need to be considered. So this is not 1, this is -1. So this indicates an error. Okay, it returns -1. So these are the two rules that applies when one of the end of the pipe is closed. Okay, so if the pipe is closed, if the right end is closed, then the read will return 0, which indicates that end of the file has been read. When a write operation is done to a pipe through a pipe, and if the read end is closed, then the signal will be generated, and the signal can be ignored or it can be handled. Okay, so this is about pipe. Now let us look into a small program that with which we demonstrate the use of pipe, a transfer of data between parent and child. Okay, so here So this is required as a file descriptor. Okay, and this is the array where we store the data that has been read and written. Okay, yeah. So first what we do, we create a pipe by using the pipe system call, and FD is passed to it. Okay, and if the value returned by the pipe, if it is less than 0, then pipe then there is an error in creating a pipe. So this error message will be displayed. If it is not so, if it is successful, if I am successful in creating a pipe, then I'll go to the next part. Okay, I'll skip this and I'll come here, and here I will make use of the fork system call. Of course, the pipe without a fork system call is next to useless. We have already seen such scenario. So what we need to do, we need to create a new child process by invoking a fork system call, and again we check whether the fork is successful or not. If it is successful, then we'll come to the next part, and we all know that fork will create two copy of this particular program, and one will be given to that of a parent, and the child will get the another copy, right? So that is determined by the value of PID. So if the PID value is greater than 0, then I am referring to the parent process. Okay, so as previously said, what we do, the parents FD0, this is closed. So parent need to perform some write operation. So reading the read end of the parent pipe of the parent will be closed. Okay, and using the write, we will write this message, that is hello world, using the write system call using FD1. So this is open. So this will be written, right? Okay. Now coming to the child process. So yeah, if it is not, if the PID value is not greater than 0, obviously it will be equal to 0, which is referring to the child process. So as previously mentioned, child, what it does, it has to perform the read operation. So the right end of the pipe with respect to child is closed, right? And this child process will be reading from the FD0, which with which the other end of the pipe is written by using by the parent, right? So this will be stored in the array line, and after reading everything, this amount of data, n bytes of data, then whatever that has been read by the child will be displayed onto the standard output by using the write system call. So basically what happens, parent, this is the parent process. So initially it will create pipe, right? It will have a pipe. So this is the pipe using, okay, so pipe will be created, and then child process will be created. So this is the child, this is the parent. We have parent, and using the fork system call, child will be created. And what do we do with the parent? FD of 0 is closed for the parent, and using FD of 1, we write something onto the pipe. Okay, and with respect to child, FD of 1 is closed, this is closed, and FD of 0 is enabled. So we write this hello world message, whatever we make use of here, whatever the message that is present here, hello world. Okay, it is written to the child. So this is the message that is passed to the child by the parent, hello world, isn't it? Hello world. Okay. And what the child does, child, after reading this, it will write whatever that has been read. Okay, whatever that has been read through the pipe from the parent, that will be displayed to the standard output. Okay, standard output, STD, standard output. And what message is displayed? Whatever that has been read. Okay, hello world. So this will be the output of this particular program. Okay. Very simple. Parent will make use of the pipe system call or pipe function to create a pipe, then fork system call to create a child process. The parent's read end is closed and child's write end is closed. then hello world message is written to the, or it is through the pipe, it is passed to the child. So this is the communication that is happening. And child, after reading the message from the parent, it will display the message as it is onto the standard output. So hello world will be displayed onto the screen. So this is about pipe system call. Now let us look into two important functions, popen and pclose function, that facilitates inter-process communication between the processes in Unix operating system. And this will handle all the dirty work what we have been doing ourselves with respect to pipe function, right? So in pipe function we had the job of creating a pipe, forking a child, closing the unused ends of the pipe, executing a shell to run the command, and waiting for the command to terminate. So all these are handled by popen and pclose function itself internally. Okay, and this is the syntax of popen function. As you can see, it will take two arguments. One is a command string. So this is nothing but the commands that need to be executed as a child process. Okay, and the type. Okay, so this is very simple. This indicates whether the pipe that is created is in a read mode or write mode. Okay, depend on the value of the type. Okay, and it will return a file pointer if the popen is successful, and null on error. Yeah. The function this function popen, it does all the work of forking a child, okay, and calling a fork function and exec function to execute the command string. So it will fork first, with which it will create a child process, and then followed by exec system call. So the child process that is created will be overwritten with the image of the commands that is mentioned in the argument command string. Okay, and after this, after executing the command, it returns a standard IO file pointer. It returns the standard IO file pointer to the as a return value. Okay, and if the type is, as mentioned, if the type is R, then the file pointer is connected to the standard output of the command string. If the type is W, then the file pointer is connected to the standard input of the command string. So we will see that in the next diagram. We'll get a clear idea. Okay. Then about file pclose function. Pclose function, it returns the termination status of the command string, and it returns, this should be okay. So this value is -1. On error, it will return a value -1. Let us see the diagram. Yes. So as mentioned, popen function can be, the type of the popen function can be either read or W. So if popen function is called with the read type, then yes, the parent is calling that popen function. So what happens is, child process will be created, okay, and with the fork and exec. So whatever that is mentioned in the command string will be executed, and the child process or the standard output of this command string of the commands mentioned in the command string will be pointed to the file pointer of the parent, which is calling the POP function. Okay, so basically it will be performing a read operation from the child. Okay, so from the child's standard output, the parent will be performing the read operation. So this is read. Similarly, if W is mentioned with respect to command string, then what happens? Child will be created using fork, and using the exec system call, this command will be executed, and the file pointer will be pointing to the standard input of this command string. Okay, standard input. So here we perform a write operation. So the data is passed to the child process. So an example would be something like this: fp popen ls-l this is the case. What happens is, this is the command string what I am talking about, that is mentioned as an argument to popen. So this will be executed by the forcand, after forcand exec. So this ls minus l will be executed, and since this is R read mode, so what happens? So the standard output of ls minus l, okay, so the file pointer will be pointing to the standard output of ls minus l. So the parent process will be reading the output of ls hyphen l. Okay, so that is a long list of all the files and subdirectory present in the current working directory. And for write, let me give another example. WC. Okay. So if I write in this way, then popen function will fork and execute this word count function with the option w, that is for word, counting the number of words, and the w here mentions the input to this word count will be given from the parent process. So the parent process file pointer will be pointing to the standard input of this command, okay, the command string, which in this case it happens to be wc minus w. So this is how popen and pclose function works. The last topic for this particular session is coprocess. Let us see what exactly a coprocess is. The Unix filter, system filter, is a program that reads from the standard input and writes to the standard output. And such kind of filters are normally connected linearly in a shell pipelines. So when I talk about a filter, I am talking about grep, sed, awk, all these are Unix filters, right? Okay, and these are connected linearly in a shell pipeline. And this filter, what I spoke about, it becomes a coprocess when the same program generates the filters input and reads the filters output. Okay, and this coprocess normally runs in the background from a shell, and its standard input and standard output are connected to another program by using a pipe. So we will look into the pictorial representation of this so that we'll get a very clear idea, right? So here I have a parent and a child, and this child is considered to be a coprocess because the same program generates the filter in this child's input, and it reads the child's output, right? Yes. So using pipe 1, we write to the child process that is connected by the parent, write something to the child process using pipe 1. Okay, it writes to the standard input of the child process, and using the pipe 2, the parent will read from the standard output of the child process. So if you observe the standard input, using the standard input of the child, it reads, child reads through the standard input, and the standard output, the output is given to parent process. So this can be considered, this is a scenario where I can consider this child process as a coprocess, right? Okay. So this is about coprocesses, and in today's session we have seen the introduction to interprocess communication, the various techniques involved in interprocess communication. Then we saw pipe function, limitations of pipe. Then we saw popen and pclose function, and finally we will end up the session with the concept of coprocesses.